Live from the Media Broadcasting Center.
This is Jim Fetzer, your host on The Real Deal, with a special 2-hour edition of the JFK show. I have Larry Rivera, who's become perhaps the most brilliant student of JFK of the last 20 years here, to go through some of his most recent revelations. It seems entirely appropriate as we approach the 22nd. So I wanted to devote the entire show today to Larry's completely spectacular research. Larry, welcome to The Real Deal.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me once again. Another year goes by, and we're still looking for the answers as far as the taking out of our 35th president of the United States. Every year, every day, we get closer and closer, even though we already know exactly what happened. But with new computer graphics and enhancements and new information coming out, we're slowly but surely getting there.
Let me just mention that last night I was on Operation Camelot, which Kerry Cassidy runs, with Jim Mars and with Robert Morningstar. We were talking about the assassination of JFK and what it meant in relation to the emergence of the New World Order. And Larry, during the second half, I was extolling the virtues of your most recent book, research, including the Four Horsemen, and of course on the verification that it was indeed Oswald in the doorway. So I just encourage everyone out there to check that out, Operation Camelot with Jim Mars, Jim Fetzer, Robert Morningstar. I think you'd find it quite fascinating. Larry, let me turn this over to you right now.
Thank you, Jim. Well, we a few weeks ago, we had a show on the Man in the Doorway, specifically on the overlays that we had been working on. That was, I believe, 3 weeks ago when we first brought this research out to the attention of the public. And at the time, when we did a show that was good, but since then we have been working on improving the technology and the work that we did. And with some very, very good suggestions by Judith Very Baker, who once when she saw this work, she actually made a couple of suggestions, and we actually went around and we redid the work, and basically came up with a much improved presentation, and hopefully our audience tonight will really enjoy this. We've got new overlays. We've got what I call calibration of the system, where we explain exactly how it works, and where everybody out there can actually go ahead and replicate what we've done. So. And
I know one of your test cases involves Marilyn Monroe, and I can watch Marilyn all night long.
Yeah. We're gonna. It's gonna be a lot of fun here, working with Marilyn and some of the divas here. You know, the very beautiful women.
let's go, Larry. I know you got an excellent version of the Alchin 6 here first.
Yeah. Again, this is the excellent version that Dennis Camino has supplied, and it's so crystal clear and it's so brilliant. You know, it's so well defined that we always like to start our presentations with it, because some people have talked about perhaps the photograph in the process of being developed in some areas were not as well defined because of the process, the actual process of the chemicals and everything, and I just find that very hard to believe, because this photograph is so crystal clear in every respect, because of the equipment that Ike Alchin used. You know, his camera and the film, telephoto lens, and everything, which make this one of the iconic images of the 20th century. So we always start with this one, and if we can go ahead, we'll go and look at the close-up there of the doorway. We always like to do, and that's Robert Grodin's work that he presented in his book, The Search for Lee Harvey Oswald. And we zoom in even further to the man in the doorway, which is the next slide. And this is an image. Again, Dennis Camino removed a lot of the haze and the modeled effect of Doorman in order for us to work with the image. And it's one of the better renditions, actually, of Doorman, because once saw this image, we were able to ascertain that it was something that was workable in this overlay technology. And the next images are Lee Oswald at City Hall. And again, this is the image that we looked at when we saw the angle of his face. It was very close to what we see in Doorman, only from the opposite direction. In other words, the left side of his face, whereas Doorman is showing the right side of his face. Here we have that nasty bruise that he had over his left eyebrow due to that scuffle at the Texas Theater. And it's, I've seen other color photographs of Lee Oswald, and he took quite a beating that day in the Texas Theater. He had a lot of bruises on his face, and a lot of people, a lot of versions of what happened there at the Texas Theater. You only get the version of the Dallas Police Department, the cops that were there, and whatnot. But I just think that from the evidence that he just got pummeled there, and whatever they say that he did to deserve it, so to speak. Yeah, I just don't buy that. I just think that they just pummeled him, and
well, it would have made it easier, Larry, for witnesses to pick him out because he's the guy who's been beat up.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, really. Okay, so this is the photograph of Lee, and the next one is our next subject, which is Billy Lovelady, and this is a very interesting photograph because we're able to work with this in the sense that the image in the middle, in the center, is Billy Lovelady, and his features, the way that they're presented in this photograph, helped us in the sense of establishing the symmetry of his face. Okay, and this is very important because later on, since we're working with flipped images, we had a little bit of criticism because of that, and part of the calibration and validation of the system has to do with establishing the exact symmetry, and I think we have done that in a very distinct fashion here, and we're going to explain it momentarily here. Okay, now the next slide is supposedly the man who is supposed to be the man in the doorway, according to Robert Grodin. Okay, and this is a very, very nice collage here, and the reason I'm presenting it here is because this is at the left is from the Martin film, the John Martin film, and it's supposed to depict Billy Lovelady outside of the Texas School Book Depository, I believe 15 or 20 minutes after the assassination, and this image on the left in the black and white with the circle, it's circling the flap from the breast pocket, and we talked about it last time, but this time I wanted to present a much clearer version of that photograph. And and believe it or not, this was taken right from Robert Grodin's book, Killing of a President, page 187. Okay, it's just a very simple scan, and just enhanced it a little bit, with Photoshop so that it was clearer, but no other changes had been affected onto this photograph. But anybody who looks at this photograph, I mean, it's just no way that you can say anything other than that is a breast pocket with a flapping. In fact, you can even make out the little button there that it's looking like a V-shaped flap there, And Judith was telling me that it looks like there's something in that pocket, because you can see the displacement of the pattern there if you look carefully at the at a close-up of the image.
Yes.
Okay, and yeah, so right there, the concept of Billy Lovelady in his checkered shirt, you can just throw that out the window, because when Robert Groden went to see him for the HSCA in 1976 to take the pictures on the right, the color pictures, all these are from 1976, where he was told to go and don the same shirt that he had worn that day, and that flap isn't there, Jim. You know, so this is like
I love it, Larry. It's so simple, it's so obvious, and yet people like Groden want to ignore it because they have an agenda other than truth.
Well, this is just basic, simple evidence that we're looking at and presenting here. You know, there's just nothing that has been altered or anything. You know, it's just basic evidence. And I want to, as an aside, I just want to tell a little story about that checkered shirt. Patricia Lovelady, Billy Lovelady's wife, calls up Harold Weisberg, I believe in 1967, 1968, and offers to sell him the checkered shirt. And you know how much she wanted for the shirt? $5,000, $5,000.
How ridiculous! How ridiculous! Probably cost $1.50 at Penny's in the old day.
Yeah, come to find out, JFK research doesn't pay that well, so I don't think Weisberg had the cash.
No, Weisberg was after he was done laughing. You know, he said, "Are you kidding me?" You know. So anyway, that's a very interesting story about the checkered shirt, and then he had supposedly Billy had it stashed away. You know, and he put it on when the photographs were taken at when Robert Groden and Kenneth Bruton went to see him in 1976, and that's a whole different story that we have to tell, but we're not going to get into that tonight here. But so that's basically what we're up against here. And so in order to establish exactly who the man in the doorway is, well, we have to use technology, and technology is on our side, I believe, and it's totally reproducible, and we've improved it, and let's get it on. The next slide, okay, is like I was saying about the flipped images. The image on the right is flipped and enlarged. Nothing else is done to it. Okay, and that is going to be the image that we're going to use as a test image, and that's the one that I want to
because
overlay
the angle of the face and so forth is very, very close to that of Doorman.
Exactly, and that's the one that we're going to use on top of our control image, which is known as the probe. So the terms here that are very, very important to keep in mind are the gallery, which are the test images, and our control image, which is the probe. The next image is our second gallery image, and that's Billy Lovelady. And this is exactly the same one that we presented before, and all we did was we did away with the color, and we flipped the image because it offers the exact same angle, which is almost a 3/4 of the face, 3/4 of the face, and which is the same that we see in Doorman. Okay, so these are the two test images that later on we're going to use a special technique which is called tinting, and we're going to extract the heads so that the overlay can just work exclusively with the probe image and eliminate everything that's surrounding it. Okay, so the next image is our control or probe image, which we have isolated. And again, this is from Dennis Camino, and he's done a brilliant job here and really, like I said, eliminating the haze and the mottled effect and everything. And I just think this is one of the very best reproductions of Doorman. And when you look at it already, you're starting to notice, you know, that the features and the way that the forehead is more vertical, and the chin and everything. So from here on, we're just going to do a little bit of magic, with the computer in Photoshop. Okay. Okay. Now the next is just talking about the two gallery images, and what we wanted to do here is size them accordingly and start working with them so that we can scale them to the same size of the probe image, and so on and so forth. And then the next image is what I was talking about, the colorization. Now the Billy once there's a tool in Photoshop called the polygonal lasso tool, and this is very effective in isolating and extracting specific areas of an image. In this case, the heads. Okay, what we wanted to do, and this was Judith's suggestion, which was twofold. Number one, to enhance the photograph by colorizing it, tinting it, so that it could be, when we did the overlay, that you could distinguish it separately from the probe image. And number two, isolating the heads so that anything that was surrounding it would not interfere with the eye when we wanted to do the overlay and work with the images. So I thought that was a fantastic, brilliant idea. And once I did this, it really started to fall into place.
Judith, actually,
okay, now the next thing that
she's quite brilliant, Larry. So I'm not at all surprised. Her pixelization study that showed that the Oswald shirt was a very good match to the doorman shirt, and that the Lovelady shirt was not, which was precisely the opposite of the conclusion that Grodin had presented to the HSCA, was simply wonderful.
And this work actually complements her work and validates in a way her work, because we're talking about the same subject, and the scientific approach suggested that we use was something that really made this would really improve this whole
I'm very
procedure here.
With the way you're setting it up. Yes, continue.
Now, what we wanted to do next is just like you do in every scientific endeavor here, every scientific testing and hypothesis and experimentation is a method of calibration of the system. Okay, calibration means that you set your equipment up so that all the tests that are performed can be validated in the sense where the data that you're extracting, and Jim, as a person who's written extensively on the scientific method, I'm sure that you can appreciate this, because calibration is just the better that you can calibrate your system, the better your results are going to be, and your results are going to depend on how well you can calibrate your system. And a way of calibrating this was by doing test overlays on different subjects. Okay. And so the very first test that we did here were these two women, beautiful women here, Marilyn Monroe and Jennifer Lopez, and what we did was starting to do calibrations here so that the people could understand what this is all about. And our next slide is going to show how we first have to find the interpupillary alignment. Okay, now the image on the left is where we are finding that alignment, where if you look at the eyes, what we want to do is make sure that they are aligned so that when we do the overlay and we overlay the eyes and make sure that interpupillary distance is correct, then once we get that down, then we can see if the two faces, if the two individuals that are being tested are one and the same, or if they're not the same person. Okay, now the image on the right is, in this example, we show that the eyes have been aligned and they've been overlaid onto each other. But when you look at the eyebrows, the nose, the lips, the chin, and everything, even the ears. They're totally out of alignment because they're not the same person. Okay. Now, this is a very effective way of doing this. Now, our next example is two women, contemporary women of the same time. And at this time, well, obviously, you know, most women wanted to look like Marilyn Monroe. So we said, well, let's do a test here with Jane Mansfield, you know, who was also a very beautiful woman, you know, platinum blonde, not really, but the same style and everything. Even the hairstyle are the same. But if you look at this collage from left to right, you'll see that as we move from left to right and top to bottom, we morph from Marilyn onto Jane. But if you look at the right, the third from at the top right, and the first from left at the bottom, you can tell it once we get the eyes set up and the interpupillary distance set. Then the more we run the opacity over towards the Mansfield subject here, you can see right there that they're not the same person. They look alike, but you can tell by the eyebrows again, the nose, the lips, and everything. And Jim, you got any comments on this one? I think this is a very good example of this.
Oh, I'm very pleased with everything, Larry. Believe me, you're doing a great job, and I can see Judith made a very constructive contribution.
Yeah, so this, like I said, this is our way of calibrating this technique. And now our next test here, we're going to do the same experiment with overlays with different photographs of Marilyn Monroe, okay, to test and see, you know, what we come up with. And again, we're going to calibrate and find the interpupillary distance, okay, between of the eyes, okay. And our next photo here, our next slide here is going to show from left to right as we go. And in this case, we've tinted the second image. And this is where we're starting to show the technique and how it works. And once you look at this from left to right, it's totally amazing how everything lines up perfectly, you know.
And it shows that her hair was slightly different, arranged differently.
Yes.
Different shows up too.
That's all that, exactly. That was the only thing that was different, but everything, I mean, everything, the eyebrows, the eyes, the nose, you know, even the birthmark and everything. It's just amazing to me.
Everything.
Yeah, everything just lines up perfect. So this is our way of calibrating the system. And our next slide here that I want to present, and this one might upset some of the Armstrong people, you know, people that are in the Armstrong camp, okay, because
I believe there are two Oswalds, one Lee and one Harvey. That's
right. So what I did was I went and found these images of Lee Oswald. The first one, the top left, a very young Lee Oswald, when he was still probably in boot camp or whatever.
Yeah, that's a recruit photograph, yeah.
That's right. And one on the right, which is a passport photograph. Now, a lot of people talk about the bull neck that this Lee Oswald had in the late 50s. Now, Jim, you were in the Marines, and you know that when you're in boot camp and when you're training to be a Marine, you are going to get a bull neck just by all the exercise and all the physical activity that you are subjected to. Isn't that right?
Your musculature is going to develop and be enhanced, and it'll make these subtle differences in appearance.
Absolutely, and so this is something that a lot of people have noticed and sort of said, wait a minute, it's not the same person. But I say, yeah, wait a minute. When you're talking about an 18-year-old Lee Oswald who's in boot camp at 17, if he got in there before he was even supposed to, as some people say, versus the 23, 24-year-old mature Oswald who's been out of the Marines for what? 4 years or whatever, 3 or 4 years, you're going to notice there's going to be a difference, you know, in the width of the neck. So what we wanted to look at here was the actual features that were being presented here. And so that's why our next, what we
Well,
did was,
you're testing the proposition, are these 4 photographs of the same person or of at least 2 different people?
that's right, at the same time. So actually what we're doing here, we're killing 2 birds with the same stone, so to speak. So what we did colorized, if we go on to the next, we colorized each of those with different tones of ink: cyano, magenta, yellow, a yellowish, and a blue. Okay, and next we did an overlay of all 4 of these. Okay, just so
That's amazing, Larry.
exactly.
That's amazing. That's really, really good.
Now, I mean, I really like the what the research that Armstrong has done, and a lot of people, and I don't doubt that Lee Oswald was impersonated. Okay, that's very obvious to me because he cannot have been at 2 places at the same time leading up to the assassination. But as far as these 4 photographs are concerned, I believe that these are all one and the same person. Okay, if you look at the eyebrows, the eyes, the nose, the lips, and everything, the distance between the nose and the lips, they're the same. The chin, the formation of the chin, the ears, and everything, the balance of the face. To me, they're one and the same person. Now, again, if we're talking about the bull neck, that's a whole different story, you know. But as far as the actual features are concerned, I believe we're presenting the very same person here.
Because that neck can be slightly thicker or slightly thinner depending on his state of physical condition. Gary King, I'm pleased, has joined us. Gary, would you not agree that that what we have here is a demonstration that those 4 photographs are of the same person, one and only Lee Harvey Oswald?
It's just striking as it can be. And you're right. There are times when I work out and it's not that much of a difference, but you can see when you're pumped up and built up. And of course, boot camp is when you're going to be pumped up at that time. And then anyone 4 years later is who hasn't been going through a regimen like that, it's going to slim down a little bit. I mean, you've got to maintain that level of muscularity.
That's right. Muscle tone, you lose muscle tone when you stop this type of physical activity, okay? And it just happens. It's a natural reaction, of our bodies, and the way muscles behave. So physiologically speaking, this is something that's going to happen. And so now, again, when we look at the features and we isolate the features and we overlay and we scale each of these different images to match the interpupillary distance, and then we look at how everything falls into place, then, the obvious conclusion has to be that we're talking about one and the same person.
Yeah, that's striking.
Okay, now the next image is also part of our calibration testing. And again, I wanted to do a lot of calibrating so that when we got into the actual overlays and the results and the empirical data that was derived from this experimentation, that people could be aware that this was something that is totally valid. Okay. Now, what we did here, we as a calibration basis here, we did test overlays on Lee Oswald of August of 1963 at the New Orleans Police Department, which is on the right, and then after that scuffle with Carlos Bringuier and the Cubans there and I believe that was in front of the trademark, wasn't that, Gary? That happened.
I think it's where he worked at, wasn't it? Where Bringuier worked? I thought it was in a clothing store.
Yeah, he had that store. Well, I'm not sure. I don't know if it was on Canal Street or what, but anyway. And the one on the left, which is the Dallas Police Department, from the weekend of November of the assassination, Friday and Saturday. I believe this was the Friday. But our next slide here represents the different levels of opacity between one and the other, starting from the left of 0 opacity all the way to the right, where it morphs in different stages. And this is an amazing sequence here that we're showing, because again, the same as with the previous overlays that we did of Lee Harvey Oswald, we're getting exactly the same results here with the eyebrows, the nose, the lips, okay, the ears, everything falls exactly into place, which yields an exact match. Okay?
You can barely tell that the pictures change, in fact.
Well, the only thing that I noticed here, Gary, is that the Oswald in Dallas had more hair. He hadn't had a haircut. Okay?
Other than the hair, you can't even really tell the transition. It's so strikingly, it's the same person, and it's just, I didn't realize it was this deadly accurate.
Yeah. It is. It is. That's, you know, like I said, Richard Sprague said that this was going to be eventually solved by the use of computers and technology, and that's exactly the way it's happening right now. The next image is another calibration test, only we can't do everything, you know, skew everything towards Oswald. We have to also do some calibration with Billy Lovelady. And despite the fact that there are very little photographs of Billy Lovelady available, we found 2 of them, which are frontal shots that can be compared with the famous FBI photo shoot of February 29th, 1964. And these are the one on the left, a younger Lovelady, which is 1971, when Jackson photographed him outside of the Texas School Book Depository on the steps there. And I just want to say that when Jackson did that photo shoot, it was on the 3rd step, and he obviously did not understand exactly where Doorman was standing. He just put him there on the 3rd step, which is totally which is not where Doorman was standing. So we all know that Doorman was standing on the top step. And the one on the right, an older Lovelady, and this is circa 1979, and you can see, you know, how thin his face was. You can see how bony his the facial structure, and it seems to me that he lived quite a painful life, you know, trying to propagate and continue, you know, with this big lie that he had been living for so many years. Okay, and so then we did a couple of calibration tests with Billy Lovelady. The first one, the 1971 photograph, and using the at top left the FBI frontal shot. Okay. And as we go from left to right, top to bottom, we see that the cranial structure is totally the same. Everything falls into place. The eyes. Now, I just want to mention that Billy Lovelady in this photo shoot was squinting because apparently they had him out in the sun, so the eyes sort of don't seem the same, but because of the squint that he's doing here. But you can see that the nose lines up, you know, the lips, the ears, everything lines up perfectly here. So, and again, we're using the tinted version of the test. In this case, the gallery image here is the Jackson photo shoot of 1971. And we're overlaying onto the Billy Lovelady FBI photo shoot of 1964. Okay, now the next slide, which is also a calibration test here, using Billy Lovelady of the FBI photo shoot versus the 1979 photograph. Even though it is a thinner looking, more drawn out Billy Lovelady, we see that the ears line up, the eyebrows, the nose, the lips, and the chin. He had a very specific curvature to his chin. Okay, and we see that exactly the same in this example here. And I thought this was very interesting because we're using different photographs of Lovelady at different times of his life. So we have you know, very, very good examples here to present as calibration tests here. And I think it works marvelously. Okay, now the next slide. Okay, the next slide is what we call photogrammetric comparison. Photogrammetric comparison means when you put 2 photographs side by side and you lay down a grid. Okay, by using this grid, you can look at both photographs side by side, and you can draw lines across from one to the other so that you can line up and verify the position of features. That's all that photogrammetric comparison is. That's what it means. And photogrammetrics is a branch of biometrics. What we want to do is we want to quantify the comparisons here that we're doing, and we can do that when we overlay the grids and the rulers. By overlaying the grids and the rulers, we can break down the images into small measurable parameters, okay? And this becomes more of a mathematical proposition here. Okay, so anybody who wants to go ahead and count the little squares from right to left and top to bottom can go ahead, because here we have the actual data that allows us to compare one versus the other. Okay, in this case, Lee Oswald on the left and Billy Lovelady on the right. Okay, again, this is a photogrammetric comparison. Now, the next slide, I want to break this up even a little bit more. And what we're doing here is we're looking at the interpupillary distance. And if you look closely at this image, you'll notice that we have placed the crosshairs, okay, right over the pupils. They meet and they intersect right at the pupils. Okay, and another thing that we have done is we have tilted this image so that the eyes are arranged in a perfectly horizontal manner. The FBI photo shoot showed Billy Lovelady tilted a little bit with the right side of his face a little higher than the left side. But in order to calibrate this and get this down exactly, because what we want to do here is we want to show the symmetry of his face. Now, the reason we want to do establish the symmetry is because we're using flipped images in the ultimate experiment at the end of our work here. So it's very important that the people and whoever reviews this research knows, and this is part of the methodology, that you have to establish how and validate the symmetry here of both individuals' faces. And here, it looks to me like he's got a very symmetrical face. Once you look at the crosshairs that are over the pupils, and you have a line going right down the middle of his nose and his lips, and if you want to count the squares from left to right and right to left and top to bottom, you will see that this is a very symmetrical face that this man had, at least at this time of his life here. So this is a very interesting image that we came up with, because again, we're able to establish mathematical parameters here, and I believe that's what science is all about. Now, the next image is we're doing exactly the same procedure with Lee Oswald, and we have established again the interpupillary distance, and we have established the crosshairs right over the pupils of the eyes. Now, right away, you can tell that he had a thinner face, okay, just by looking at how these graphs and these images are presented here and how they play out. He's
got 6 boxes, and Lee's got 5 boxes.
Right, that's right, exactly. Exactly. If you go back and forth, that's very good, Chance. That's I was going to suggest you go back and forth.
Gary. That was Gary's observation.
Oh, Gary. Oh, okay. Oh, excellent. Okay, good. Great, Gary.
If you said count the boxes, there's 5 between the pupils of Lee, and there's 6 between the pupils of Billy.
That's right. Okay. Now the next slide, and this one just blew me away, because here we're overlaying one onto the other. Okay. And now if you go back and forth, you'll see the incredible difference. And this happens to be exactly what we have been talking about, Jim, where Billy Lovelady said he was 30, 40 pounds heavier, shorter.
He said he was 2 to 3 inches shorter and 15 to 20 pounds heavier.
Oh, my God. I would say more 30, because...
well, this is later. Now you're talking later. He said that at the time that the photo was taken at Alchins.
Well, we have records when Billy was when he had that trouble at Andrews, where he was weighing 170 while he was still in the Air Force. Okay, now again, the same situation. You're in the Air Force, and you're gonna weigh less. Okay, so when he
And Lee was what, only 135 or so?
That's right. That's right. So we're talking about more. We're talking about 35 pounds here, Jim. You know, at least 30, 35 pounds of difference between these
Well,
two.
Billy probably would have not wanted to admit how much heavier he was than Lee, so he might have been
toggling. I mean, it's just a different face, a different picture as Chance toggles it back and forth.
Yeah, well, you know, like I said, we have evidence and we have very specific documentation that shows that Billy Lovelady weighed 170 in 1961 at Andrews Air Force Base.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
he was fit, when he was very fit.
When he was fit. So when he's he went on the lam, you know, for 12 months. When they finally caught up with him at the TSBD in January 1963, and then when the assassination happens in November of 63, I don't think he was weighing 170 pounds. He could have been close to 180. All right. So here we see the difference. The difference here in the how it's projected in the faces of the two individuals here, and Billy Lovelady was, you know, a much heavier man, and you can see his face here shows the difference here, and this overlay here shows a difference in the eyebrows, the nose, again the lips, the chin. Okay, so another thing that I wanted to mention here, if you look closely at Billy Lovelady's forehead and right around the temple area going upwards, it was more in a tapered fashion. Okay, it looked more tapered upwards. Okay, and if we can go back a couple of images to the original Billy Lovelady grid here, there you go. If you look at right across, see the line across the eyebrows, and from there the temples up, you can see that it's sort of like an hourglass shape here. Okay, and that's very very peculiar and specific to his cranial anatomy here. Okay, so and what this shows here is that his forehead was swept back a lot more than Lee Oswald's forehead, which was more of a vertical, straight up vertical forehead. Okay, and that's very important because when we did the overlays, it really showed in the angle that Doorman and the test images were shown. Okay, and I just wanted to mention that. And as a preliminary overlay in the calibration of the system, you know, right away we're seeing that. Okay, so now we're going to go on to actual results here, and go on down. There we go. And this is the first sequence, and this is a Billy Lovelady. And again, the very top image on the top left is Doorman without any type of overlay opacity at all, and it works from left to right, top to bottom, all the way to the right, which was 35% opacity, and we go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Okay, and then as we move from all the way down to the final overlay, you can see the different degrees, the difference. And our final image here shows a man that obviously is not Doorman. Okay, and I want to point out, because I'm going to go over this now within the next slide, all the specifics. But the first thing that you notice, and this really jumped out at us when we did the tinted version of the overlay, you see the shadow below the nose. Okay, and at first, you know, somebody told me, "Hey, it looks like he's wearing a Hitler-type mustache," you know, and I just laughed because, you know, that's exactly what it looks like. But if you look closely, you'll see that the shadow is totally displaced from the nose. Okay, they're not together. Okay, as far as the nose, this particular nose projecting that particular shadow. All right, and then you can see that the eyebrows are more arched and higher, the chin and everything. And another thing here that I needed to mention, don't forget here that I'm trying to make him to scale him to be more like Doorman. In fact, I'm working in his favor here. Okay, because once I set the interpupillary distance, I can go ahead and scale from bottom to the top and left to right and try to make them look as much as possible like dormant, but it's just impossible. Now here, again, the forehead is more swept back, and which is indicative of the Billy Lovelady experiment that we did just a couple of frames earlier, slides earlier. And and the nose is just so bulbous and humongous here that it just doesn't work out here at all. Even though and we have to admit it's an older Lovelady, yes, but it's just way too much difference here for him to be to have been here dormant. And in the next slide, I'm just going to detail the differences here. Like I said, once the interpupillary distance had been set, we attempted to scale the head of Lovelady as much as possible to match that of dormant. And here are some of the anomalies. The nose is rounder, larger, more bulbous. The bridge is different. The nose shifts to the right, displacing it from the shadow cast by the nose of dormant. Okay. There is slightly more space between the lower lip and the tip of the chin, which brings the mouth slightly higher. The eyebrows are more rounded and arched, and there is more space between the eyes and the brow ridge. The shape of the chin is different, and the face is wider. The forehead is swept back at a different lower angle.
Now, Larry, let me just ask about the emphasized part about the nose shifting to the right. Could the argument be made that resulted from the fact that you were using a flipped image?
Well, it's possible, but we'll see when we look at our next exemplar the difference between one and the other. That's a very valid question, but we're not done presenting the results here because we still have to do the Lee Oswald, which is what we're going to come up, which we're going to present right now. And here, again, we have 9 images in this collage, left to right, top to bottom, and as we can see, the more that we move the opacity up 5%, 10%, all the way down to 40%, we can see how all the features start to line up. In fact, such a remarkable way that it's just amazing here. And again, the forehead, the eyes, and when we look at the blow up and with the grid overlay of which is the next image, okay, and this is very important here.
It's just uncanny, Larry. It's just uncanny.
Right. Here you can see that shadow of the nose, the way it's just like. It's just amazing. It's just amazing how that shadow lines up perfectly, corresponds to that particular nose. I mean, if this was a horse race, we would say it's Oswald by the nose. All right. So anyway, the forehead is a lot more vertical. The eye, the brow ridge, and everything, and even the pursed lips. I mean, the way that he had that particular way of pursing his lips, and everything, and the chin and everything. So now our next slide is our key identifiers here. And interpupillary distance between Oswald and dormant is the same, which make the eyes line up perfectly. The nose matches, including the bridge and general conformation. And more importantly, the nose is in perfect position to cast a shadow seen below dormant's nose, which was caused by the noon sun, of course. Now, the lips, which are pursed in a particular specific manner, are a match. The eyes, the eyebrows, and brow ridge are more horizontal and are a match. The high forehead is a match. The chin matches in size and shape. And the face matches in both width and height.
It's just amazing, Larry. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's what you would expect if indeed dormant had been Oswald. Then this study would reveal it, and indeed it does. And I think what's more remarkable, Jim, is when you colorize the test images, the gallery images, and you extract them the way that Judith had suggested, you can appreciate this much better. The ones it's just amazing. Yes.
All right, Larry.
I think Judith made an extremely valuable contribution to refining your method, Larry.
Oh yes, oh yes, and I have to give her a lot of credit. And I'm
Yeah,
not.
it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
Larry, when the image that you're using that you flipped over, was he outside during that arrest, or was that inside the police station or something like that?
that was inside. That's the famous photograph of him flashing the handcuffs. Okay, and that was inside, you know, and he was being paraded around. And we're going to talk about that in the second hour because we have a really nice, very interesting presentation about the shirt. Okay, the travails of the rust-colored shirt. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Now, the very last two slides here are the actual photogrammetric side-by-side comparison. Okay, and this is really amazing because this is what validates and verifies this technique in a way that is just amazing to me. Okay, first we did the overlay portion here of this work, of this technique, but then when you have the photogrammetric, which I spoke about earlier, which is a side-by-side comparison. And now when you have these images with the grids and the rulers all set up and everything, now we can start drawing lines across, okay? And when we do that, which is our last slide here, okay, our very last slide, Chance, yeah, okay, okay. Now I've drawn three lines here, okay, and we'll start at the bottom, okay. Even though I tried to scale his chin as much as possible, I'm talking about Lovelady on the right. Okay, when you draw the tip of the chin of Doorman across, you'll see that the tip of his chin still protrudes beyond the red line. Okay, and as we go up and we do the same thing with the chin here. Now, don't forget that the grids here are perfectly aligned.
The nose.
Yeah, the nose.
You say if we go up and do the next, which is the nose, not the chin. We've already done.
Right. Yeah. Yes, that's right. That's right. But I was just commenting on the grid system here that subdivides, you know, both images, and which allow again for mathematical projections and measurements. And but the nose here, the tip of the nose on Doorman, as you project that line over to the right, you'll see, you know, there's it's completely different. You know, and this has to do with photogrammetrics, okay? And then the eyebrows, and I'm just doing three basic areas here because if you do this, you know, with the entire photographs, with the entire overlays, you know, you can have a field day, you know, here. But this is just something that other people can do to enhance this work. But the top line there with the eyebrows, you can see that Lovelady's eyebrows were much more arched, rounded, and raised above that line, okay, than Doorman's, okay? So basically, what we're speaking about here, Jim, is that the evidence and the work that has been done, you know, with this experimentation, tells us that the man in the doorway is unequivocally Lee Oswald. You know, I don't see how.
Larry, what you've demonstrated is when you have a true hypothesis, the more you research, the variety of techniques you apply, they all yield the same confirmation of the hypothesis when it's true. And you have demonstrated that the Doorman match with Lee Oswald is virtually impeccable, and the Doorman watch with Billy Lovelady is not.
Absolutely, absolutely, and the enhancements that we have presented here in this study, again, thanks to Judith, you know, I've really complemented this work and really developed it in a way that I just don't see how it can be refuted, Jim. It's really amazing how this all lines up.
The beauty of it is it can be replicated by anyone who has the same, you know, images available and applies the same techniques. This is a perfect example of a scientific experiment that has yielded a confirmation, actually a verification of the identity of Doorman as having been Lee Oswald and as having refuted the hypothesis that Doorman was Billy Lovelady. Wonderful.
Yeah, and it's even more evident when you run the animations. Don't forget that I've constructed animations, GIFs that morph, from doorman all the way through to each of the two subjects. And when you look at those in motion, it's even more amazing because
I love it. I love it. Gary, would you like to add a word or two before we take the break?
It's just devastating. And you were saying, well, how can anyone refute this? Well, they are, other than Judith. But Larry and I are going to be in Dallas, Texas together. We're going to be
Gary, there's a difference between denial and refutation. Refutation is a proof. They can deny all they want. They aren't going to produce any refutations. This is simply excellent work. Larry, I can't...
No, and another thing, Jim, if you are going to refute, okay, what you also need to mention here, if you're going to refute, you need to go ahead and replicate first.
That's right. Okay? Of course you do.
And you have to replicate.
And we need to replicate their acclaimed or alleged reputation. So, the fact is this is impeccable as a piece of scientific research, Larry. I'm very impressed. I think it's wonderful Judith contributed. And we're going to now take our break. This is Jim Fetzer, your host on The Real Deal, with my special guest this evening, Gary King, who can assume the host chair for the second hour, and Larry Rivera, who's just presented a masterful demonstration that the man in the doorway was, without any doubt, Lee Harvey Oswald. Will be.
We can now say, with moral certainty and considerable scientific authority, that the death of JFK was committed by a meticulously executed conspiracy which was obscured by an extensive cover-up. Murder in Dealey Plaza, edited by James Fetzer, goes to the heart of the JFK assassination. You'll read new and up-to-date information regarding the Secret Service, the Lincoln limousine, the medical evidence, the cover-up, altering the film, framing the patsy, and the silent historians. Also, 16 smoking guns, each one crushing the government's lone assassin scenario. A world-class chronology of November 22nd, 1963. Chapters by David W. Mantic, Gary Aguilar, Vincent Palomara, Douglas Weldon, Jack White, Ira David Wood III, James H. Fetzer, Doug Horn, and a classic essay by Bertrand Russell. The complete story in the pages of one single book, edited by James H. Fetzer. Read it now, read it again. You'll use it as a reference. Murder in Dealey Plaza. Available at Amazon.com and major bookstores around the world. It's murder.